Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is Fun Stuff Friday and we've got a little bit of fun stuff to play with. We've got some KuiiBoii, I think that's how you say it, Q-U-I-I-B-O-I-I, colored pencils. There are 48 oil-based, from what they say, uh, colored pencil. It says wood-free color pencil. It's not wood-free. It's got a black barrel wood, and it actually feels kind of plasticky. So it may be wood free. I've looked it up and I've tried to find information on it, and everything on the information I can find says it's wood, but it really kind of feels like plastic to me. Let's actually take a look because I have sharpened them in here. So let's take a look at the sharpening and see if it's a plastic or a wood. No, it feels like wood in the sharpening. So yeah, I think it's got a wood core, just a black wood core, like some other pencils have, such as the Black Widows and stuff like that. But so we're going to take a closer look at these. I have put them in my pencil holder because they are not numbered, they are not named. They're very generic base pencils. So I have sorted them into color order. They do have a color chart on the sales thing that does tell you names and numbering from 1 to 48. I don't know if I've got them in that order, and I have not, when I went through and swatched them, I did not name them or number them because I haven't gone through and numbered everything. So, and then of course we've got our hug for today. We're going to be coloring those cute little mice. This one. Well, we will be coloring these little mices in trench coats. I didn't get around to drawing any sort of background, so I might later on draw a little bit of background for them. Maybe I'll do a wall with a little mouse hole, that sort of thing. But I haven't gotten to that part yet, so I will color them and then I'll decide if I'm going to do the background. And of course I will post it on my Instagram when it's all done. So that is what we have for today. So let's get going on this. First we're going to have our swatch. So of course grab your coffee, sit back and relax. This will take about a minute and a half. So don't go far. I will be right back. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. So we've got our swatch sheet here, and as you probably noticed, I did put down two of the same greens, so I have crossed one out. That's how the gold ended up with no space. But I will be redoing this swatch sheet and fixing that later on. Um, so let's take a closer look at the pencils themselves. First of all, like I said, I'm going to switch you over to the close-up camera here so you can see. There is absolutely no markings, none whatsoever on these pencils. They are a black wood, and they say they're an oily core. However, with doing the swatches, I'm going to zoom you in here just a smidge. Zoom, 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 zoom. Where's my zoom? I'm going to zoom you in. Oh, why didn't it? There we go. All right. Zoom, 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 zoom. There we go. So I'm going to turn on the light so you can see what I'm seeing. So as you can see, the amount that it laid down on the light areas is very, very light, very splotchy. And I found that they have a feeling like they have more binder than pigment in the pencils. You know, they're a really inexpensive pencil. They're like I think $10. I got them for like $2.50. They After I bought them, they went skyrocketing up to a really high price, which was just unreal. And now they've brought them back down to proper levels because yeah, they were after I bought them, they went up to $29.99, and it was like, yeah, no, they're just not worth that $29.99. And I definitely would not suggest anybody buy them at that price. They do have a fairly good range of color. Um, you know, they've got, of course, your standard white, really pale yellow, a yellow, and a dark yellow, an orange, and then a red orange, and then a couple of reds. There's a regular red, a dark red, and then a mahogany or Bordeaux type of red. And then we have a peach, and then we have a salmon and a pink, and then we go into our red violet colors. Excuse me, sorry. So we've got a deep red violet, a medium or a light red violet, and a medium red violet. Those two there are really close together. This one should be here and vice versa. And then we have a deep purple, which is in the blue purples, a medium. These two here are really close as well. Um, Let me check and make sure that I haven't. Yeah, no, I haven't. I wanted to check and make sure I hadn't done something duplicate. So, yeah. So, nope, I didn't duplicate it. Just counting. So this one here is a little bit darker than this one, but not a whole lot. And then we've got our pale purple, like a lavender color. And then we have a really deep blue purple. This one here, I would lean further into the blue area, into a dark blue area, but it is that teetering on that brink of blue and purple. And then we have our deep blue. This one here should be here. And then we've got some light blues, and then our aquatic blue colors and aquatic green colors. Now, for a selection of blues, they did quite well with the amount of blues there are. Same with the greens. We go from our yellow green to our leafy grassy green into our leaf green, our olive greens. Then we get into the dark green and the evergreen kind of color. Now on our browns, this light brown and this light brown, And once again, I had to check to make sure that I hadn't duplicated a color um, like I did up here with the greens. But they are different. This one here is a little bit darker than this one here. Not a whole lot, but just enough that you can definitely tell that they're a different color. And then we go into our terracotta color, into our darker browns, and then into our mahogany color. And then we have a good selection for a small set of grays. We've got a light, a dark, and a medium. And of course these should be switched around. And then we have our black, and it's not a really deep black. It's a very, very light black. And then we have our silver and our gold. And I didn't see a whole lot. Well, there is in the silver, but there isn't a lot of metallic coloring in the gold itself either. So that one could make it as a brown. Alright, so I'm going to switch on over to the main camera, and I'm going to grab, I forgot to grab my tool, of course. I think it's in this one. Yes. So I'm going to do a couple of different tests on the back of this sheet here. So it says soft oily core, and that's what the manufacturer sales thing stated. So we're going to do two and three. We're going to do our water test, and then we're going to do our blend test. And then we're going to do our smudge test. Alright, so this is our water. This is our blend. And this is our smudge. Alright. Now let's move you in, because that's way out. Let's move you in so you can actually see what's going on here. Alright, so let's start with a red. So this one here, let's see. Yeah, let's do the red after the orange here. That's the most basic red. And I have noticed that a couple of these are a little bit bent. They're not horribly bent, and they're really, really flexible. Like really, really flexible. Like it almost feels rubbery in your hand. So one of the things I noticed when using these for the swatch is you can't put a really tight point on it. I really prefer a really good tight point on an oil-based pencil. But as you probably saw with the brown color, the brown-green color, or yellow-green color, if you put any pressure on them, they just snap. So if you do purchase these, if you do decide to purchase these, try to maintain a light hand on them and layer. You definitely have to layer with these. So as you can see, we've got a good layer of color there. I'm just going to put one more good layer just to make sure that it's completely covered. These pencils will take patience. Like I said, they do feel a lot more binder than core, or not binder than core, binder than pigment. But for $2.50, I can't really complain. Alright, so as you can see, I have sharpened this one to a really fine point. Just going to wipe that away. And I'm just going to do a light layer and build, see, as soon as I put any pressure on it at all, that tip just breaks right off. So be really careful if you put tight tips on them, that you're not going to use a heavy hand on it, because you will just snap that tip right off. They do say they're bound into the barrel with glue, so they're not going to break all the way down the barrel. You are just going to snap the tip. So, and then we're going to grab a blue. And I think this is the darkest blue. That's still a blue. And I probably just sharpened it way too much. So as you can see, they do sharpen quite well, and you can get a really, really tight tip on it. But as soon as you put any sort of pressure on that tip, it's going to crumble and fall apart or snap. So make sure if you do sharpen it to a tight tip like I have right here, that you use just really light pressure and do really light layers and just build that color up. Don't be heavy handing it, otherwise you're gonna frustrate yourself with all of the breakage. I'm just trying to see, just like that. So make sure that you don't sharpen them to a tight tip is pretty much what I'm saying, because even with a medium pressure, they're just snapping. With a heavy pressure, like I did a heavy pressure for my swatch, and several of them just broke right off all the way down into the barrel or onto the barrel. Okay, so they do get dusty. They do break quite easily. So let's test them with some water here. Oh, I'm trying to see. I'll get this one. Okay, so I've got my water pen. And do I have any tissues left? I don't think I do. That's all right. So I'm going to start with the red here. So it's not seeming to draw that red out. I'm going to switch over to the close-up so you can see a little bit better. So it didn't take any of that red out. So that's good. Let's try the yellow. It is running the pen, but it's not running the pigment, which is really good. So do the blue. And there's no run there either. So they're definitely water resistant, which is good. So definitely not going to run with water. So let's blend them together. So I need a yellow and a red and a yellow and a blue. And I'm going to go with a different blue this time. This is a little bit more of a medium blue. I'm going to try not to sharpen it too much. Even that's too much. It's going to snap. But we'll see. Alright, so we're going to start with red to yellow. So we're going to put so here's 1, 2, 3 layers of the red. Two, 3 layers of the yellow. Now I'm just going to go into that area that we've got the yellow in. So I'm not seeing a blend here. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing them lay on top of each other, but when you get a heavier hand on it, you actually can blend them into a different color. But it does take a lot to build that color up to that orange. Alright, so let's dust that off and we'll take a look. So there's a lot of build up there and not a lot of color change, but it definitely did go from yellow to orange. So let's start with and the pencil itself picked up a lot of red as well. So let's go on to the next one here, and we're going to start with yellow. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to use the blue. Dust that off. And I'm going to start on this side with the blue so that I can dull that down a little bit. 1, 2, 3. And then we're just going to start in this area here. So there's 1. And then we'll go in with the blue. There goes the tip. And as you can see, it's almost like a wax crayon. It's almost like blending a wax crayon. So I don't know how much actual pigment is in these pencils. See, like that. If you put too much pressure on, you break it all the way down into the barrel. So one of the bad things about it is even with a dull tip, if you put too much pressure on it, you're gonna break that down into the barrel. I'm gonna do the blue. And I think it's just scratching off more than it's laying down, so I think that's probably all we're going to get. And it's just choppy. It's not a very nice blend at all. So let's try to blend it with a blender. So I've got the Caran d'Ache blender pencil here. And that's just making a mess. That's what that's making. So it was able to drag some of that blue over into the yellow and get from the yellow to the blue, but let's try this one. Let's go from here. They do blend out quite smooth, but they don't blend together very well at all. Alright, so now for a smudge test. I'm going to take this red here. There's 1, 2, and 3. So 3 full layers up and down to get that density. And they don't smudge, like they're not moving. Well, maybe just a touch. Now we're going to take the blue and try the same thing. So this moved just a little bit. So there's 1, 2, 3. Next to no movement there. And then we'll try the yellow. Now the yellow seems to have a more intense color than the blue or the red. And there's our 3. And once again, no movement. Alright, so let's see how far these will blend with a blender, how far they'll move with the blender pencil. So there's 1, and then 3. Trying to make sure that I have the same amount of pigment down on the page. Alright, so the yellow moved slightly. The red moved a little bit more, and the blue isn't moving at all, barely at all. That's just more of the pigment that the blender pencil picked up. So as you can see, it just pulled all of that pigment right off the page. So blendability with a blender brush, not at all. Blendability with each other, not at all. These are definitely a pencil that you would have to do a butt color. So instead of blending into each other, you would have to, for example, let's say we're gonna color the sun. So let's start with a yellow. And I have a circle tool there, and I should have just used it, but so we're going to start with a circle there, because yeah, I can't draw a circle. And then we're going to take some deeper yellow oh, well, there goes that pencil. And then the orange. But as you can see, as I'm laying this down, it's not going into that other color and making a different color. Even if I go over it, it just sort of doesn't even lay it down. And then the red. So with other pencils, if you were to say lay red over top of this orange, the orange would show the burnt orange color. Where with these, it just sort of lays on top of it, and you can just move it right off, which is not a good thing. So let's take our blender. Let's see if we can make this all into one thing. So it was able to be blended quite smooth, not as smooth as I would like it to be. I would definitely not use a Prisma blender on these because that is just going to pick up all of that pigment right off the page. Personally, if I had a choice to purchase these again, even though they are fairly inexpensive, for $10 I could definitely get like the Cadrim or KuiiBoii or whatever you want to call them, which are a much better pencil. So with the testing that I've done here, they passed the water test no problem. They did not pass the blend test. They passed the smudge test, but they did not pass the blender test. They do blend to get rid of the white spot, but they don't blend together very well. So let's give them a little bit of a chance here, and we'll color this flower with them. Just going to move it down a little bit here. There we go. And we'll see how well they do on an actual coloring. So I'm going to grab the pink, and I'm just going to sharpen it with the 2-point on the Tagal. So that I don't break too much tip off, because tip breakage frustrates me. You know, the color isn't fantastic. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not what I would consider a pink. It's a deep pink, definitely not a light pink. And they do take a lot of pressure, which the pencil itself doesn't like, to get that pigment there. So if I was to do a light hand, the way the pencil wants me to, it would take me forever. And I don't think you would get the same results for, you know, things like these internal areas of this flower petal. Now, I don't know how well these are going to blend together, so I don't know if we're going to even get a full flower done properly. Like I said, they don't blend together very nicely, and the way I color, I definitely need them to be able to at least blend together. There are definitely possibilities of using it for what's the word for it? Enhancements. If you have too much color on the paper, maybe these will be okay for going over top of something and having that dark color or light color or whatever on top. But we'll have to test that theory. Alright, so I've got that down. So let's do a little bit of this one here, which is almost a salmon color. That pink that I laid down is the lightest pink in the set. So after that, you have to sort of go with salmon colors or peach colors to complete that coloring. And just going over the edges here a little bit to see if it'll blend together. And as you can see, that color doesn't move a whole lot. I'm going to turn off that light so you can actually see what I'm doing, hopefully. But it's not moving that color into the other colors. well, into the other color. And it's very choppy. Um, Definitely more a elementary school brand or elementary school feel to the pencils. Um, they are smooth. I didn't have a single scratchy one, and I think that's because they are highly bindered. So the binder is more than the core, than the pigment. Goodness, words are hard. I just can't seem to get them out today. And like I said, going over top of something lightly um, just sort of glides over top of it. It doesn't really leave a lot of the pigment behind. And they're not doing horribly on blending, like it's not horribly choppy, but it's not changing the color of that other area and dragging that in. So let's try the peach, which is a light yellowy. Well, let's actually put a little bit of yellow in there. We're going to go with some light yellow and see how that does. And that's just picking up that color, basically erasing it and replacing with the yellow. I'm picking up more of it than putting down, I think. But we'll try it with a light hand here and see if it makes a difference. I know with a heavier hand, which I did here, it lifted up that pencil, that pink color, salmon color. So as you can see where I've colored over top of that pink, a lot of that pink is gone now. And that's because the tip of the pencil is actually picking up that color a little bit and just moving it out of its way. You know, and it's still giving a fairly decent covering and a fairly decent color. It's just not as pink as I would have wanted it to be. So we're going to try a different color here. Let's try a deeper pink on the next one, and maybe we can end up toning it down to the pink that we want. It's not bad, it's actually quite nice, but let's add a little bit of this darker pink here and see if it'll blend on top or layer on top. So I'm getting a very smooth feeling. I'm not feeling any tooth of the paper on this area. This area is a little bit better. I think I left a little bit of tooth there. But anywhere that I didn't leave any tooth, it doesn't seem to be laying down any color. So yeah, definitely have to be careful on how much pigment you or how much pencil you lay down, especially if you want to build up color, which you would assume this pencil would be good for since it's very oily. But alright, so let's try this one here. Let's start with the darker color. Now I'm just going to put it in areas that I want to be dark. I'm not going to try to blend it into any other area. And I'm going to try to work it with the lighter colors. colors and see if we can get it to move around a little bit. And just putting it very, very lightly, very barely on the edges of those areas that I want darker. And it seems that the shorter the tip, the better. So when you're putting your sharpening your tips, try to make sure that you have a fairly short sharpen on your tips. Alright, so now I've got the salmon color here. Or is this the pink? No, it's the salmon. Just making sure. And like I said, it feels like it's definitely laying down the color, but it doesn't feel like it's blending it into that other color or pulling that other color into it. Now that we've colored the entire petal with a color, I'm going to go over it with that yellow and see how much of that color changes with adding the yellow. Also trying to make sure that I've covered, as much of the white space as possible to see if that yellow will blend in or if it'll just cover the white areas. So it seems to be blending in a little bit. These are really light colors, so the lighter colors seem to be blending a little bit better than, well, they're at least blending a little bit. I can't say better than the dark colors because I haven't really colored anything with a dark color. So let's do a dark color. So let's take this one here, which is a really dark pink red. Sharpen it up here. Just have to remember to be gentle on the tips because they will snap. Make sure that you sharpen them very short tipped so that it has the full thickness of the core. Otherwise you're going to end up with a snap. Now let's try to keep it all the same here. Go down into it with this peach. And it seems to be blending okay. I'm not getting as much drag as I normally would with other pencils. Like if I was to color over this with another pencil, I would get a lot more drag of that red into. And it seems that this pencil is just picking up that red. And once it's down, it takes a lot more work to add a little bit of color. And this is just on the cardstock. So it may be too smooth for these pencils, which is very possible. But it didn't do too badly. Let's switch over to the close-up camera, or not the close-up camera, the main camera here, and take a look at the blend. See if we have at least a little bit of a blend going on here. Alright, let's see here. So it didn't do too badly. It definitely doesn't, what is the word I'm looking for? it doesn't feather in. It doesn't blend in as easily or as well as other pencils do. You can definitely overtake a color with a color, like I've overtaken this one here with the orange or with the salmon and the yellow. But the pink, the dark pink, that I would expect to blend in off of those lines isn't blending in even with the blender pencil, which is a little bit interesting. Yeah, it's strange. They're not absolutely horrible, but they're not absolutely wonderful all at the same time, if that makes sense. They're definitely something that has a learning curve. Now, I'm not going to fuss around with this too much because we do have the mice to color. So let's see how they do on this paper. Like, this paper is not coloring book paper. This is definitely newspaper, so it's a lot thinner. So let's see how it does on it. Let's go over into our close-up camera again and look at our little mice. Just going to move this down a little bit. There, that's better. I think our focus is... Let's get our focus done. Yeah, I think our focus is fine. Alright, so let's take our color chart here and we'll pick out some good colors. Let's start with the green. I think. Yeah, this green. Alright. Now we're going to go light to dark on these. So I want that green and I want this green. Like I said, I'm just sharpening them down to a 2-point on the Tagal. And I'm going to do this little fella's jacket in green. Hopefully it's all this little fella's jacket. So on this paper, which is a lighter paper, but it does have a little bit of tooth to it compared to the cardstock that I was using. And of course this is the light color, so we'll see how well the dark color goes onto it. So separately, this dark color is quite dark, and as you can see, even with a moderate pressure, I'm not getting a lot of lay down on top of that, and it feels like it's digging, like it's cutting into the paper, if that makes sense. If I press too hard, it feels like it's cutting the paper. Very interesting pencils. Definitely a budget pencil. You know, you can definitely feel the pigment in, or not the pigment, the binder in it. And that's what it feels like. It feels like there's more binder than pigment in these darker colors. They feel really almost like a crayon. They feel very crayonish. So I did get some of that dark color on there. However, I know that I left a little bit of white down here, so there's more ability to add that color. But in the areas that I didn't leave a whole lot of white spot or ability to lay that color down, it's just not laying down very nicely. So let's take this one, see if we can blend it together and darken that up a little bit. So I can definitely layer on top of the color that I've already put down, but it's not pulling those two colors together. It's peeling up, I guess would be the appropriate word, the darker color, and just basically balling it up on the pencil. But they do seem to be laying down the color okay. So on the next one, we're going to try going from dark to light instead of light to dark. I did light to dark because I wanted the dark areas to show a little bit more than they are. I'm going to take this blue-green here and we're going to do his buttons. Yeah, these little fellas are going to end up being one color by the looks of it. Hopefully not, but it's not looking good so far. So let's take our light blues. I need this one and I need this one. Okay, so we're going to go from dark to light this time. And we're going to add the dark blue first. I know it's a Hug and we really shouldn't be experimenting with new pencils on it, but it tells me a lot. So it gives me a lot of information, especially since a lot of coloring books have this. It has a little bit better paper, but it's still pretty thin. And the tooth of some of them is really, really, really thin. So I can definitely tell these would not work well in a quality coloring book. I can't say won't, but I wouldn't use them in a quality coloring book. Personally, because they don't blend very well into what you would want them to do in a quality book. You know, we're used to extending out that shadow so that we can blend it into the lighter color, and it's just not blending into that lighter color. So once again, I'm just putting a medium pressure on this, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. I forgot to look. Like I said I would yesterday. I have a tendency to look down and not look back up until I'm done what I'm doing. And yeah, you guys can't see what I'm doing. And I'm trying to hold these pencils back a little bit, but they're not coloring very well if I do that. So well, the blues seem to be doing better. The blues and greens did okay. The color is there. However, like I said, it's not blending, it's not spreading that darker color into that lighter color, making it a blend. They're definitely light on the pigment, or on the yeah, on the pigment. Heavy on the binder, light on the pigment. This blue, even though it's the light blue, should be a lot more vibrant than it is. It kind of feels very grayish. Let's see, how many layers is it going to take for me to get actual blue instead of white? It's leaving behind a lot of different white spots, which is fine because this is fabric, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I'm getting close to being at limit for the paper. And there are some areas that just don't look right. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the dark blue and see if we can darken that up. And we cannot. It's not laying any color on top of that whatsoever. In some areas that I haven't gone over, I can layer some, but areas that I've already gone over, unless there's a little bit of white spot there, isn't picking up any of that color. So make sure that you get your color down before you go over it. This light blue is very light. Alright, so let's move on from the blues. We've at least got their little jackets done. We're going to go into the grays. I was going to do them one brown, one gray, but I think we're just going to do them both gray. So I've got 3 different grays here and a black. So let's start with the dark gray. So we're going to have to definitely work from dark to light. I don't know why I'm getting this one ready. I need to use the to-go. So we need the darkest of the gray first, then our medium, then our light. Alright, so here's our darkest of our gray. And just little flicks. Just doing the shadowy areas. And as long as you put down, a good layer of the color you want down, then it should work out okay. need the medium. And we're just going to work off of that color into the face area here. And that, like I said, that dark color isn't spreading at all, so I'm just building off of it. And I'll do the same thing with the light color. Just build right off of that. Now I might get a little bit of blend into that medium color because of the light-handed use on the edges, but it's no, it's not. It's not blending in. Oh, I'm sorry, I was out of picture again. So I'm just taking that medium color and just going in, trying to get that shadow to stand out just a little tiny bit. And go in with the dark one and see if I can get a little bit more of a layer there. So I'm using really, really, really light layers. And I'm able to alternate between the layers. But it's definitely not putting down, after the first layer, it's definitely not putting down as much of the pigment as I would want for that layer. So going with our medium. And then our light. And they're still turning out cute, but it's not as vibrant as I would have hoped. Then we're going to take a little bit of red because the pink is going to be too light on top of this gray. I'm just going to take a bit of red, and then we'll take a bit of the gray and dull it down. Basically, it's just scratching it right off. I'll put it in there. Alright, so let's do his hands. So I need the medium, which is this one. His little paws. And then the light. Then we're just going to put the light on this one. And then we're going to take the dark and do his little paw down here. And his tail. Alright. So far they're not doing horrible. They're definitely not something I would purchase again. I'm just finding that they're harder to work than I prefer. They snap really, really easily, which is, for a hard pencil, not a good thing. especially a low pigmented pencil. It's not a good thing. And unfortunately, the pigmentation of these pencils is very low. It's not extremely highly pigmented. The colors are nice. They do color, they do have color, and the color is pretty. However, you can feel and see the, I'm sorry, my hand's in the way again. You can feel and see the amount of binder that's in them. So, and that could definitely be a problem with your coloring when you're trying to blend and move things together. With these small colorings, not a huge problem because you can definitely do a small area tip to tip on them and extend it out with the colors that they have available. Like I can extend this dark out by adding the medium. As long as I don't go over too much of the dark, the medium won't take it over. And same with the light. As long as I don't go over the medium with the light, it shouldn't take it over. Alright, now the light. Just trying to get some kind of blend there. My first instinct is to go over the edge of it and get that blend going. So I think that these probably would not work well for my coloring style. Because basically all you do when you go over it like that is pick up the pigment from the previous color and erase it basically. So I'm just going to go back into the dark areas here and see if I can darken that up a little bit. No. It's definitely a one and done type of thing. You can definitely, bring your colors to the edge of each other and fill them in. But once you've gone over them and once you've added more color, you may find that you're not able to add a whole lot of the dark back in or the light back in, that sort of thing. Alright, so now we're going to do his foot area here and his tail. Just going to make sure I've got that dark in there. And then we'll put the medium. It's just going to take a little bit of the medium because of the fact that they're tiny little toes. And I think we're just going to do the floor, which just looks like it's a dirt floor with some pebbles. Okay, so I'm going to put these back in here. And we're going to take some browns. Start with a darker brown. Preferably make sure that I'm in camera view. Alright, now we're going to take a little bit of the light brown here. And then we're going to take a little bit of this black. And do these areas right here, if we can. Yeah, even the black's having a hard time overtaking that color, which is a little odd. You know, in the areas that I haven't colored, it does okay, but in the areas I've colored, it seems to just sit right on top and not blend in. But it's done its job. It's definitely done what I wanted it to do, just not as bright as I would want it to do. So I'm going to switch on over to the main camera here so we can see these little darlings. I just think they're so cute. And it did do a pretty good job. It's not as vibrant as I would want it to be, and it was a lot more work to get any sort of definition of color. I could have definitely done one color and done, but that's just not the way I color. So it did take a lot more work than I anticipated, and that I want to do on a picture. They are like, if I feel this, like if I do this, I can feel that wax build up, and I can feel it moving, like rolling into little balls under my finger. That's just weird. Like I could probably scrape it off type of feeling. So all in all, I don't have that same feeling here on the swatch chart. It feels very smooth, but I also went over this with the Caran d'Ache blender. So if I went over it with the Caran d'Ache blender, it may seal it in and get rid of that feeling, but it feels very oily and very sticky. Like it's very strange. All right, so this is number 24. So this is September 24th, 2021. And we have done 24 of the hashtag HugADaySeptember. And we have done, let's see, I think this one is number 37. Yes. And this is number 37 out of 100 hugs. So what we've done so far, we've done our little mice fella and his friend. It's not the three blind mice, it's just the two. And we did this with the new KuiiBoii colored pencils. And to be honest, when this is just my first impressions with them, and this is just my opinion, and absolutely, I have to play with them a little bit more to get a full understanding of them. In my opinion, just from doing the swatch, the testing, and this small coloring with them, I would definitely not buy them again. They were a very inexpensive set of pencils, and I really wanted to just try and see if being on or buying some of the sales items, if they're really worth it. And they're a nice enough set of pencils to do one and done coloring. So if you're doing something that you only want to use one color in, they're pretty good for that. They work okay if you're putting your dark color down and your light color up against it. Try not to go over top of it too much, because if you do, you're going to bring that dark color way down and possibly lose it altogether. And I missed his jacket over here. So, um, just going to bring this up so you can see it a little bit better. And there. So, they're cute. So that is number 24. This one here, which is our ogres, which was done with the Jolly colored pencils yesterday, is so cute. And that is number 23, number 36 out of 100. And then we have our squids, or our octopus and our squid, whichever you want to call it. A lot of people colored them as aliens, but I just see them as squid. And there, that is our hug for September, number 22. And then we have our ghosty hug. So we have our his and her ghosty hugs, stealing the sheets out of the closet to give a hug with. And that's hug number 20. And it says, perhaps everything that's frightening us is in its own deepest essence something helpless that just wants our love. And that is Rainier Marie Rilke. And then we have our hobbit hug, our sweet little hobbit hug. And that one is number 19. And then for number 18, we have our daddy-daughter hug. And then number 17, we have Thor and his hammer. And number 16, we have the Sultan and his daughter. And then we have the platypuses. I remembered this time. And this is number 15. And then we have our little Thumbelina and her Robin giving themselves some hugs. That's number 14. And then we have our Belle and the Beast giving out a good hug there. That's number 13. And then we have our Knights in Shining Armor for number 12. And I don't know if you can see the shine on that armor, but it's all glittery. I had to make it shiny armor. Come on. So that is number 12. And then number 11 is this wonderful little sapling hug. Look, just little happy little saplings. I am Groot. I'm going to rename them Groot. This is Groot's family. And then we have our lovely little witchy hug for number 10. And then we have our Pinocchio and Geppetto hug for number 9. And it says, he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. By Emily Bronte. And then we have our Father Time and Baby New Year hug. So he's at a time and he's just starting. And that's number 8. And then we have our Alice in Wonderland with the White Rabbit hug. And that's number 7. And then we have our little court jesters. And that's number 6. And then we have our Wizards and Warlocks hug for number 5. And then we have our wonderful ballerina and her soldier for number 4. And number 2, let's do number 3 first, right? Number 3 is our wonderful little troll hugs. And it says, I would always rather be happy than dignified. Now ain't that the truth? So that's number 3. and that's done by Charlotte Bronte. And then number two, um, we have our Superman and Catwoman hug. Two enemies hugging it out. And then we have our first hug, which is our wonderful little monster hug. And we've got a mama and a baby monster. Just loving on each other, having a good old hugs. All right, so that is our Hug a Day September hugs. I am going to be coloring all 100 hugs in this book, and I have already started coloring other hugs that basically I was told about 100 hugs and started coloring before I was supposed to. So that is why I'm coloring all 100 hugs because I jumped the gun. Like I really did. Mm, I really jumped it. So our next hug will be our 25th hug for September. Now, don't forget today we have Ashleigh Colors her birthday um, marathon going on starting today. So make sure that you get over to her Instagram or my Facebook, anything like that. I did post in the Facebook group um, the entire chart of different YouTubers that will be streaming for this colorathon, and it is all to celebrate everything that makes us happy in life. Coloring, doing puzzles, doing diamond paintings, anything like that. And of course, to help Ashleigh celebrate her birthday, because what better kind of celebration to do than a wonderful color what makes you happy um, colorathon. So I wish her a very, very happy birthday. Of course, tomorrow I will be on at 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time instead of 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I will be on 2 hours later than my normal time just because of Ashleigh's stream, and I will be participating in that celebration. And I will be coloring something that makes her happy, which is kitty cats. So I will be coloring a wonderful little kitty cat tomorrow. And I will be doing that with my Brute Funer 520 set. So I will also be coloring a hug at some point tomorrow as well. And of course, I will be doing Ashleigh's colorathon as well. And the full 2 hours of tomorrow's stream, our Saturday color and chat, um, will be under 100% dedicated to Ashleigh's colorathon. So I will be doing the color a hug afterwards. All right, guys, until tomorrow, please make sure you get out there and check out all of these wonderful people participating in this colorathon. There are so many of them, and all of them are absolutely wonderful, wonderful colorists, YouTube artists, and just basically just wonderful people altogether. As for these pencils, I will have to work with them more to give a better understanding of them. They definitely do have some issues and some learning curves. Um, they do have some really nice colors, and they do lie down on the individual colors quite nicely. I just have to learn how to work with them. So I've got to figure out what paper works with them and what kind of pressures and that sort of thing works with them. They may not be for me because of the type of the way I color. But I will continue working with them on here as well as possibly trying them in some other coloring books and seeing how they work with those, or mixing and matching and trying them with other pencils. So there's all sorts of things that I still need to do with them just to make sure that they're definitely not something I would purchase again. But my first impressions of them um, are a little lackluster. You know, they feel very, very um, oily, waxy, whatever you want to call them. They say that they're oil based, but they feel very based, so they're not very pigmented, and that in itself could be an issue. Great set of pencils for a little one because they do not mind their pencils really dull. But don't give them to somebody too little because they will snap the tips off every single time. All right, guys, until next time, and of course, I hope to see you all tomorrow at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That does help me out quite a bit. The KuiiBoii colored pencils come in this wonderful little holder. However, unfortunately, because they are not numbered, are not named, basically you just have to go off of what color the barrel is. Not the best storage solution unless you're just giving them to a child. When in that case, a fantastic storage solution. It's quite hard, so definitely not something that is just going to fall apart. So that's cool. All right, so that's my first impression and my first thoughts on them is definitely we'll play with them a little bit more. At this moment, I would definitely say they're not for me, but like I said, I have to play with them just a touch more. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope to see you tomorrow for Ashleigh's colorathon. And yeah, of course, happy birthday, Ashleigh. I hope you have a fantastic day. I know your birthday is closer to the end of the month, but this was as close as we could get to it. Of course, make sure that you have a wonderfully colorful birthday. Until next time, remember to relax, color, and stay safe. Until then, bye bye for now.